So far, we have seen about these three different modifiers, which is a public, private, and as well as a no access modifier. The last one is a protected. So what is the significance of this particular protected is how are we going to use this protected access modifier? When we declare something as a protected, then here the parent class and the child class information comes into the picture for this protected. Okay, which are declared protected in a superclass can accessed only by the subclasses in another packages or any class within the package of the protected member classes. So here, protected access gives the subclasses a chance to use the helper methods or variables while preventing a non-regular method. So, okay, what exactly this protected is? So the significance of this particular protected is, of course, this protected can be accessed within the same package itself. If at all you want to access this protected information outside of this particular package, we should know, right? If at all you want to access this information outside of this particular package, in such situations, whatever the class is having the protected methods, it should be a superclass. And there should be a child class in a different package. Then the protected information can be accessed outside that particular package too. So the only thumb rule here for this protected is if the classes are in a parent-child relationship in a different packages. The parent-child relationship, there is no relation or there is no rule that both the parent and child should be in the same package. Maybe parent will be there in a scripts 1 package and child may be there in a scripts 2 package. That's fine, parent and a child. The ultimate objective here with respect to this protected is, assume that if the parent is in a scripts 1 package and the child is in a scripts 2 package, if the child wants to use the protected method defined in a parent, though they are in a different packages, still child can use the protected method. That's what the ultimate objective of this protected is. Fine, let's go back here in the reusable logics. So what I'm doing means protected void sum. Assume that I'm defining it. System.out.println sum. I have defined a sum here. Okay, this is what the protected method that I have created. And what I am trying to do means obj dot, what is the method that we have created here is a sum. Okay, let me try to access that particular information. So whenever we are trying to access this one, why it's asking to change the visibility to public. Okay, so with the help of object itself, we can access this information. 1 second. So there is one small rule that we are missing here. Okay, so let us see that particular rule. First of all, before accessing in a same class, let us try to access this information in a different package first, and then we'll come back to the same package. Okay, so here, how exactly we can deal with this one means. So the only thing is, so a reusable methods has a protected void sum, and in the package too, where we are calling this. Okay, so guys, the issue why this is not working here, sorry, if you clearly observe, okay, I made a small mistake here. So the reason why this protected is not working is, guys, so we have defined the information in a reusable logics that is inside, okay, the reusable logics that is inside the scripts package. And we are trying to access it outside that particular package. That's the reason we are getting the issue. So with respect to the protected, it should be in the same package, right? So it means reusable logics I have a defined. I can access that information either in a demo 2 or a demo 3, not in a logic calling. You got it, right? It's completely a different package. Okay, that's what the ultimate point why we are getting a failure here. It's asking us to change it to this particular one. So this is not the class where we need to access. If at all you are referring to the same package. See here, the reusable logics is in a scripts2 package. Earlier I was calling that information in a different package. As per protected, I know that if at all I want to call it in a different package, that information should be in, okay, that information should be in this particular way, which is a parent-child relationship. Now, in the demo 2, if you see now, obj dot, I can see editor here. So I was, sorry, edit, and that particular method out there is a sum. Still, I was able to call this particular sum here within this package. So I have a defined a method as a protected, and I was able to access that information within the same package itself. And now, what are we trying to do? Logic calling is in a different package. We have created methods in a different package, and we are trying to call it in a different package. As these two are not in a relation, the protected method cannot be accessed outside that particular package. When this protected method can be accessed means if the class where we are calling and the class which has methods, if both are in a parent-child relation. So I'm using an extends and here reusable logics. So here, what I have done right now, I'm just using this logic calling extends. So this is extending this reusable logics that we have defined out over there. And now obj.sum, again, why we are getting it? 1 second. So here, as this is this information, parent-child relationship, let me define this method to a static for now. Okay, let me define this information to a static method, and let us try to call this information. See here, guys, I was able to access that information without creating an object as it is defined in a parent directly in a child. The only keyword that I have added here is a static. We will see about this static concept in the today's session. But for now, consider that whatever the parent class information is there, directly the protected information, we were able to access it in the child class, though they are not in a relation. Okay, though they are not in a relation, basically, this is the way how exactly we can access this information. Okay, perfect. Done the deal. So the ultimate point out over here is the place wherever you are calling, it should have a relation between these two. Okay, there should be a relation between these two. Okay, that's fine. Done the deal. Good enough. So if you define something as a protected, that information can be accessed in the same, okay, in the same package. Plus, additionally, that information can be accessed in a different package whenever it is in a relationship. Perfect. Done the deal, guys. So this is all about the various sets of access modifiers, whatever we have in Java. Okay, this is all about the various sets of access modifiers that we have in a Java. Of course, we are going to use these access modifiers whenever you are creating. Okay, so whenever you are creating now your complete information, everything you will maintain these access modifiers. Okay, for each and everything you will be maintaining this particular access modifiers. Okay, fine, perfect, done the deal. Then the next point that we need to consider here is constructors. So what exactly the constructors concept is? Constructor is a code block which is called and executed at the time of object creation and construct the values for the objects. That's why we call it as a constructor. So what exactly the constructor does? This constructor will pass on the values to the variables that you have defined in a class, basically. Okay, to the variables that you have defined in a particular class. Perfect. So why exactly we are using this constructor? How we need to work on? As said that this constructor is a code block which we can consider as a method also. This constructor also looks like a method basically. And when this constructor is called means whenever you are creating an object to the class, at that time itself, the memory will be allocated for this constructor. Okay, and this constructor is a special type of a method which is used to initialize the object. What does it mean? This constructor is a special type of a method which is used to initialize the values present in a particular class. Okay, usually we are creating an object using a new keyword. Okay, so whenever you use a new keyword, automatically this new keyword will allocate a memory and followed by it will invoke the code present in the constructor. Okay, and for suppose if at all a class doesn't have any constructor, okay, so what it will happen, whatever the default values are there for the variables, the Java compiler will assign the default values for the variables. If at all you have a constructor, then you can construct those variables. Okay, we can construct those values. That's fine. So how exactly you need to create a constructor and what are all the rules you need to create a constructor and how we need to deal with it? Let us see now. So the ultimate objective here is this is used to set initial values for the variables that you are defining. Whatever the initial values you want to set for the variables within a class, you can use this constructor to set those initial values. Okay, fine, done the deal. So how this is going to work, how exactly we are going to use these values, how you need to pass on these values, all those things, let us see right now. Okay, so all those things, let us see right now. So here, what I'm going to do right now is, let us see the rules first. So the rules for this constructor are, the name of the constructor and the class name should be one and the same. Okay, if you have a class and if you have a constructor, the constructor name and as well as a class name should be one and the same. Okay, guys, if you have a class and if you have a constructor, the name of the constructor and the class name should be one and the same. And constructor should not have any return values. It shouldn't have any return values at all, guys. Okay, this constructor shouldn't have any return values. Fine. So let's go back to the editor. Let us create a new class in which let us try to add a constructor. So here I'm creating a demo with a main method, guys. And in this particular thing, I need to define a constructor. Constructor name and a class name would be one and the same. So demo4, I have given just my name as a demo4. And here in this class, I have defined int a, string b. So I have defined two variables here. In the constructor, what are we doing right now means, okay, so what exactly we are going to do for this particular constructor? So system.out.println, a default constructor. Okay, guys, so what are we doing right now? I'm just creating a default constructor. Okay, so now what exactly we need to do whenever you are defining a default constructor means, so here, let us try to create an object to the same class. Demo4 space obj is equal to new demo4. I have just created an object, guys. I haven't done anything. Okay, in the current situation, I have just created an object now. And now, when I run my test script as a Java application this time, so the default constructor is there and it called that particular information. Okay, and the default constructor is there, and by default the default constructor got called and the content present in a default constructor got executed. And as said that if at all we don't have any constructors, it will be assigning a default values, right? So what I'm doing right now means I'm commenting out this constructor public void print. Okay, public void print system.out.println A plus B. So I'm just printing this A and B, guys. So I have defined two variables and I'm just printing this A and B, obj.print. So when I run my test script as a Java application, see here, A is an integer, the default value is 0. B is of a string, the default value is null. 0 and null got printed down to the console. Okay, so it means whenever you have defined any variables, and if at all you are not passing any variables, the default constructor will give a default values for those variables. But the ultimate objective of the constructor is it will pass on the values, right? So what I am doing right now means let me create a new class. Okay, so let me create a new class, new demo5 with the main methods. So guys, if you clearly observe, slowly we are creating the complete information in the same class itself. Demo5, and here demo5 space obj is equal to new demo5. I have created an object to this particular thing. That's fine. So what I'm going to write down inside the constructor, see, basically, if you remember one thing, let me add a comment here and let me write down public void sum of int a comma int b. So both are methods itself, right? The first one is a method and second one is also a method. The only difference out over there is consider that this is an add to avoid a confusion. Sum is a method with 0 parameters or 0 arguments, and add is a method with 2 parameters with 2 arguments. So this is of a 2 arguments and that is going to be a 1 argumented method, guys. Good. Any questions on this? So we have created Java methods earlier, where in which we pass these arguments to a particular method. The similar way, even to a constructor also, you can pass a parameters, and that constructor we call it as a parameterized constructor. And that constructor, we call it as a parameterized constructor. So whichever the constructor we are creating, if at all we are passing that information in this way, then we call that particular constructor as a parameterized constructor, guys. Good enough. Any questions on this? So here, what I am doing means string B int A. So I have defined 2 values, and how I will be passing those values to that particular variables, I want to pass those values using the constructor int X string Y. So I have created a constructor, and in this constructor, I am passing 2 arguments, X and a Y. So A is equal to X. B is equal to Y. So whatever you are doing right now, whatever the values you are getting from a constructor, you are passing to a variable and you are passing to a B variable out over there. And immediately a quick question, from where we will be getting the values to a constructor? The answer for this one is, if a class contains a constructor, okay, if a class contains a constructor, then we will pass the desired values while creating an object itself. So the syntax for the object usually is class name plus obj name is equal to new constructor name is the syntax. And if at all the constructor is having any parameters, you need to pass the parameters at the time of object creation itself. So one thumb rule is, if a class contains a parameterized constructor, at the time of creating an object itself, you need to pass those parameters. At the time of creating an object itself, you need to pass those parameters. That's it. Any questions on this? Everyone? Good enough. Perfect. Done the deal. So this is the way how exactly, okay, this is the way how exactly we can, okay, how exactly we can pass on. Now, let me show you this practical implementation. This class contains a parameterized constructor. Now, see, the object that you have created earlier is throwing an error message. So here, as this is a parameterized constructor, you need to pass on those parameters. So here, the class is accepting integer and a string. So integer and a string. I passed on this particular parameters. So these values, whatever you are passing from the constructor, will be assigned to the variables that you have defined inside the class. Whichever the variables you have defined in the class, the constructor values will be passed. How would I know whether these values got passed or not? See here, public void print system.out.println A plus B. So whatever the A plus B value is there, I'm just printing it. So obj.print method I'm calling, guys. So what does this print method is doing? See here, first of all, it will come, the main method, it will come to the line number 27. And from here, it will pass on the information to the constructor. 4 and the Surendra will be passed to a constructor. So here, X is 4, Y is Surendra. X is stored in a variable. So the value internally for this A variable becomes 4 and the value internally becomes Surendra. Now this value is 4 and Surendra now. And later in line number 27, we are assigning a values. In line number 28, we are calling the print statement. In the print statement, you are calling A and B. A and B values are 4 and Surendra. So when I run my test script, the internal values will be printed down. So the ultimate objective of this constructor, what you have done is using these constructors, you are assigning a values to that particular variables. Okay, and this is a parameterized constructor that we have seen right now. Is this point clear for everybody or any questions on this? The constructor concept. Am I clear for you all?
Yes, Surendra, just need to digest all the concepts.
You need to, yeah, you guys need to practice this.
Same here.
Yeah. So as said, Java is a bit tricky concept. The only thing is, once we are done with the session, just spend 30 minutes to 40 minutes on the topics. So just watch this video once and then, implement this concept, which is more than enough for you. You no need to explore anything else on top of this one. So whatever the things we were discussing, these are more than enough for you. Okay. Good. So this is all about a constructor concept. and how exactly we can use this constructor concepts. Perfect. Done the deal. So what exactly the main method is there? And can I execute my Java class without a main method? Of course, you can't execute any Java program without a main method. So we can say that it's a kind of a starting point where your Java program will start execution from there itself. Okay, without this main method, nothing will be executed in Java. So the starting point for this one is a main method. And here we have a public, static, void, main, string of arguments, open braces and a closed braces. We know open brace and a closed brace means that's the starting point for the method and there is an ending point for that particular method too. We can ignore it. And what exactly a public is? So if you remember a couple of minutes before we studied about access modifiers. So public is an access modifier. Okay, we have to use this public access modifier before the main method so that your Java virtual machine can identify the execution point of that particular program. And moreover, if this is other than a public, and immediately a question that comes rise in our mind, if I make it as other three access modifiers, will it recognize? No, the JVM will recognize the execution point if it is starting with a public itself. So that's the reason it's a mandatory for us to define a main method as a public so that whenever you are executing your program, your JVM will recognize this particular main method and from there it will start the execution. Okay, and then, so what exactly the next one is? It's a static. So we haven't studied anything about a static keyword yet. We are supposed to discuss today. But anyways, let's discuss about this static keyword tomorrow. See, the ultimate objective of this static keyword is if you define something as a static, without creating an object itself, the static information can be accessed. The complete static information can be accessed without creating any object. So that's the reason usually main method is defined as a static so that without creating any objects itself, we can access that particular information. Okay, and void. So guys, if you remember, void we have discussed about while studying about a methods basically. So which is a return type. Every method has a return type, whereas this main method is not returning any value. That's the reason it's as a void basically. So void is a return statement that we have studied basically. This method is not returning anything. So it means the method outcome, you can't store it anywhere, but this method will perform any kind of a logic. So that's what the void means. And finally, it's a main basically, which is a default signature defined by your Java virtual machine. And it is called to execute the program line by line. Okay, line by line, basically this main method. Whatever the content is defined inside the main method, your JVM will recognize, okay, main is my keyword to execute it. Whether this keyword is there or not. Inside the keyword, how many lines are there? It will pass on one line after another line for that particular execution. Okay, good. And here guys, if you observe, followed by a method name, we have a braces. So for any method, if at all we have any braces, we call it as an arguments. So for this main, we are passing some data. So in the program, you are manipulating some information. So whatever the data you are passing here will be passed as a string of arguments here. Okay, it accepts a group of strings basically. It is used to hold multiple sets of information. And usually, if you define something as a string of, we call it as an array. As of now, we haven't discussed anything about an array. So just ignore this particular one now. Okay, so that's fine basically. So This is ultimately, okay, this is ultimately an argument that main method is going to accept. Okay, good enough, done the deal. So this is the way what exactly the main method comprises of. This is how the main method looks like. Okay, you just need to create a main method in this particular way. Okay, perfect, done the deal. So this is all about a main method concept, guys. So public is an access modifier, static is a keyword, void is a return type, main is a main from where the actual execution will start, and then string is an argument that we are passing to a particular main method. So in continuation with this main method, there are some more small concepts that we need to discuss. So that we will see as part of our next session.